How's it going, guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the Zippy balance mods for the Nabalis Vulp Pro balisong trainer. The Zippy mods consist of blade inserts with an optional weighted insert that has removable tungsten weights, as well as an insert that plugs the bottle opener. So if you accidentally chaplain on the bite handle, you don't tear your finger up. It also includes these optional pivot plugs that replace the hardware at the base of the handles to shed handle weight and make the balance more neutral. And it also comes with these cosmetic side plate replacements. First, I'm going to show you how to install the pivot plugs. So I'll take my T10 driver and I'm just going to unscrew the hardware at the base of the handles. These add a lot of mass, so by replacing them, we can make the balance more neutral. Now, to install the pivot plug, you're going to want to orient them so that they're perfectly perpendicular to the handle. If you try and install them at an angle, it's going to be very challenging. The reason being that these are a very tight fit. It's a friction fit responsible for keeping the G10 inlay in place. You can see here I've tried to install it at an angle, it's not going in. So I'm going to reset, straighten it out, and use my thumb. If you're finding that there's too much resistance, you can push it against the table and then push it in the last way with your thumb. It should require a lot of force to put these in because we don't want them coming out. If you do want them to come out, however, you can use a pointy, rigid metal object. I'm using this pick from a gun cleaning kit, and you would just hook it in, pierce the material, and then I'm going to keep the metal section over this G10 inlay so I don't scratch the aluminum, and I'm just going to lever this out. And once it starts to pop out, I'm going to use my fingernail the rest of the way. I'm going to attack it from multiple angles. And then the other one, if you wish, you can push it out, although I do find the hook method easier. And what I would do is I'd have my finger pressed on the G10 inlay, and I would just gently push it out. But I want them in, so I'm going to put them back in, and you get to see this procedure an additional time. All right, the pivot plug's surface should be flush with the surface of the handle. So if it is flush and not popping up, you know you've installed it correctly. All right, let's attack the other side. Okay, so here you can see I'm actually running into trouble getting the female Sexbolt out. It appears to be friction fit in here. If this happens to you, don't worry, we can get this out. The easiest way to do it is take a thin, rigid metal object. I'm using this 2mm hex key, and I'm gonna be applying pressure. I'm gonna push it in, and while I'm pushing it in, I'm gonna take my T10 hex driver, and I'm just gonna wiggle the Sexbolt back and forth. And if it might require more force, you might need to push this against the table, and just take it slow. You don't want to jerk it and risk injuring yourself, but this is probably the easiest way to do it. So you guys can see how I'm doing this. I'm going to use my thumb, which does not have as much force, but is sufficient, as you can see, because by rotating the Sexbolt back and forth and pushing at the same time, I am working the Sexbolt out. So all of you guys should be able to install the Vulp Pro pivot plugs to reduce the handle bias, because I've just showed you how to remove a stuck Sexbolt. And I'm going to repeat the procedure that we used, laying it up straight, pushing it in with my thumb. All right, and I'm gonna visually inspect to make sure the pivot plugs are flush, which they are. This just shed a bunch of weight from the bottom of the handles and it looks quite nice, in my personal opinion. So you've just finished the installation of the pivot plugs. Let's move on to the next section of the mod, which will be to install the side plates. Now, each order of the side plates, which do actually come with the blade inserts, but each order comes with a side plate, 2 side plates with chevrons, and then one Zippy logo in a random color. Generally, it's going to be red, at least for this batch. But what I'm going to do is show you how to take out the side plates. So we'll do one handle at a time. And I'm searching for the the path of least resistance in this case. I'm starting with the bite handle. And what I'm going to do, you can see I've unscrewed this screw here. I'm actually going to screw it back in just a smidge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it. So I push the Sexbolt out about halfway. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fingernails to peel apart the G10 inlays so I can extract the stock plate. And at this point you can completely remove the screw. That might make it a little easier. But these plates are fit in very tightly, so I like to have full access here. If you can just use your fingernail to wiggle it out. I like to go from both sides here. Trying to lever it up from one side when it's such a tight fit is challenging. So I've just extracted the stock G10 side plate. And now I'm going to install the Zippy one. So I'm going to use the red one for my bite side just to mark the bite handle. And I'll use the teal on the safe side. So let's go ahead and put the red one in here. And actually, I'd like it to go the other way. The Z is not symmetrical, but there we go. All right, and now I'm just going to screw my pivot back in. Done. And you might need to smooth it out, make sure everything's nice and flush. You can visually inspect it to make sure everything's lined up properly. And it looks perfect from where I'm standing, so we can move on to the safe side. My Torx driver is slipping on me. Let's see if I can add a little friction here. And that did it. And I'm just gonna repeat the same procedure I did last time. I'm gonna unscrew the Sexbolt and I'm going to push it maybe halfway, although this Sexbolt also looks quite stuck, so I'm gonna repeat the procedure that I showed you earlier to loosen this Sexbolt up. And I'm just going to use my thumb to push it while wiggling it with my Torx driver, and you can see it's coming right out. Perfect. This trick will save you hours of time and endless headache. All right, so I'm just gonna repeat the procedure. I'm gonna peel apart the G10 inlays. This one appears to be stuck. See if I can work a fingernail under there. Maybe, maybe not. That's interesting. Well, you got to admire the tolerances. Nice tight fit. Well, I'm going to do something somewhat risky, and I'm going to use this pick See if I can lever it up within the pivot itself. And I say it's risky. I really don't want to damage the G10, or the aluminum for that matter, but the G10 is what I'm worried about in this scenario. Well, I'm going to see if I can push out the Sexbolt a little more. And maybe I can extract the G10 inlay without actually moving this side of the G10. It is actually budging just a little bit. Although I don't think I'm likely to be successful in the time allotted for this video. So let's just try and extract this from one side. It is going to be more challenging, but I think we're up to the challenge. Just need a little bit of patience. I'm going to try and lever it up. It's a great way to scratch the aluminum, but the aluminum is hidden by the side plate. So I'm thinking we can get away with it. All right, I've levered up this half. Let's see if I can wiggle it out.
Complete.
Without snapping. All right, wonderful. I got it out. Just had to be a little patient and not risk averse. G10 held up just fine.
Complete.
So, all right, I said on the safe side I was going to install the teal chevrons. So let's do that. So I'm going to push in this side first, the side that has the G10 inlay still in place, and then just push the rest in with my thumb, and then push the G10 inlay back, insert the screw again, and let's just screw it back in. But my threads aren't catching. My Sexbolt's too far out, so I'm going to push that against the table and try again. And we're in business. All right, give these another test to make sure they're tightened down. I don't really recommend you fully full crank bushings like you're the Hulk. It's a good way to damage the washers, and just means that you'll probably imprint the washers with the bushing, and so if you ever need to disassemble again, your tune won't last as long. So I just used a moderate amount of force, but you can see that the side plates are successfully installed. I like to orient the chevrons facing the pivots, like to match the handles, but you can do it the other way if you like to go against the grain. But you've just successfully installed the side plates. So let's move on to installing the blade insert. So the first step here, we're going to install this bottle opener insert. You'll notice the inserts have this textured pitted side and then this kind of smooth lineated side. For the bottle opener, what we're going to do is just with this textured side facing up, we're just going to push it in, snap it in. And it might look like that, and we're just going to use our thumb to push it all the way in. You might hear it click into place. And there you go. Oops, I just popped it out. So as you can imagine, the bottle opener inlay insert is not going to be as secure as the other blade inlays. It is nice for casual flipping, but you might find it pops out on a hard drop on concrete. But it's really just there for quality of life if you want to practice and you don't want to risk clawing your finger with the bottle opener on an accidental bite handle chaplain. So that's that. Let's move on to the blade insert. What we're going to do, in a deviation with my other inserts, because I used a slightly different technique to achieve the lip, what we're going to do is, with the smooth lineated side facing up and the textured pitted side facing down towards the blade, I'm going to hook in the bottom corner push it in, push it down with a smooth lineated side facing up, and then I'm going to bend the inlay insert and hook it into the top corner. And now I'm just going to smooth it out with my thumb. And you might need to push it a little bit from the bottom to make sure the entire lip ends up on this side of the blade, and then we'll push it in again. So that the lip is not folded over on this side, which it's not, and it's not folded over on this side, which it's not. If you see cosmetic imperfections along the edges, you know you've got a folded over lip and you need to repeat that procedure. All right, so at this point we can choose to either put in the unweighted spine insert or the weighted spine insert. I'm gonna start with the unweighted spine insert because right now my preferred balance configuration on the Vulp Pro is actually this one with the pivot plugs in and the unweighted blade inserts, which do add weight to the blade. They're just not weighted with tungsten, so it's more subtle. And of course the side plate mod, which I always rock, doesn't change the balance at all. But I'm gonna hook in, and I did it wrong. I had the textured side facing up out of habit, but on this model, we're gonna have the textured side facing down. I'm gonna hook in with the bottom of the inlay, hook the top corner too by bending the inlay, and then I'm gonna smooth it in with my thumb, just like before. And then I'm gonna push it in a little bit extra to make sure that this lip is not folded over anywhere, and then smooth it back the other way. And I don't have a folded over lip on this side or this side. So that's the proper installation, and from here I could go flip it happily. I could take the bottle opener insert out if I chose, or I could pop it back in. Again, you pop it in horizontally and then push it into the blade. Now I'm going to show you how to install the weighted blade insert. If you look on the product description on the website for the Vulp Pro mods, as well as the scrolling through the images, you can see I've got a little image table showing what are the preferred balance configurations that I found in my personal experience flipping the Vulp Pro. And so generally I found that the weighted insert pairs nicely with the slim caps, or for folks who just want a little bit more blade bias or momentum. I'm not using the slim caps here, which do add a little mass to the end of the handles, so I typically use the unweighted Vulp insert. But for you folks who do fall into any of the above criteria, I'm going to show you how to put in the weighted insert. It's the same procedure as before. To begin with, I'm going to hook in the bottom with the lineated side facing up and the textured side facing down. I'm going to use my fingernail to hook in this top corner, and then I'm just going to press the insert in. And if it's being stubborn, you can just kind of squish that area, kind of use your fingernail to pull it in, and it should just snap right in. And like before, I'm going to push it in a little bit too much so I don't have any folded over lip. And then do the same thing on the other side, push it in so I don't have any cosmetic imperfections. And you can see here, that looks good to me. All right, so now let's go ahead and put in the tungsten. You can put in 1, 2, or up to 3 tungsten weights along the spine, depending entirely on your preference. So feel free to experiment with that. It is a lot of fun. And I'm not gonna tell you which one's the best, because that really is up to your personal preference, as is everything in this hobby. So the 2 ways that you can install the tungsten balls, you can either press them in to a table or use the tip of a clicky pen to push them in. But the key here is you want to always pop them in from the textured side. Do not try and pop the tungsten ball in on the smooth lineated side. So I repeat, we're only gonna pop the tungsten ball through the textured side. And so I'm gonna use my finger to brace the inlay here, and I'm gonna use the tip of a clicky pen to push the tungsten ball in, and it should just pop right in. And then I'll show you the second ball here. I'm doing a visual inspection after each ball to make sure that the balls are centered in the blade, and you can see they're not, so I'm gonna give them a little help with my force from my thumb and just make sure that ball is centered. Ooh, didn't mean to shake you. You do want to center the balls because if your tune deteriorates and your blade gets more play or wiggle, you don't want the protruding tungsten, which protrudes by 0.4 millimeters on each side. You don't want that to contribute to tap. So that's why I like to keep the ball centered. And then the last way you can pop in the ball is by pushing the blade onto the ball on the table. That does require that the handles be off the table, which would put me off camera. So I'm right now looking for a rigid object. Let's see if there's a notepad will be sufficient. That looks like it might. No, might be thick enough. So I'm with the textured side facing down. I'm gonna push the ball into the blade. And then I'm gonna use my thumb to push it in the rest of the way and make sure it's centered. All right, looks good. One last visual inspection to make sure there's no cosmetic or structural issues. I don't know if you guys can hear the baby crying in the background. Hopefully not. She's happy, I swear. All right, anyway, that is the end of this video. You've just successfully installed the Zippy mods for the Nabalis Vulp Pro. Thanks for watching, guys.